This is a response to Nick's video from the Science Asylum on YouTube titled, "A Day Isn't What It Used to Be." The idea presented was that, because the hour values we assign to a day are completely arbitrary, we should be able to get rid of time zones entirely, making timekeeping a lot easier. It's an interesting idea. After all, if we were to set our clocks so that we had lunch at 4 or 10 or 6, as long as it's lunch at the time of day we get hungry, it's all right. The problem is, when we schedule our day and speak about the time of day, we don't just want to know what time of the clock it is. We really want to know the actual time of day. We want to know the location of the sun as it passes in our daily routine. So, eliminating time zones and all going to UTC, Universal Coordinated Time, really doesn't address the problem at all. We would simply find ourselves in the same situation we're at now, but probably with a lot more mess on top of it. The reason for time zones is how they come into effect when we need to communicate with people far away, which is a big deal, of course, in today's world. Say you're at work and you need to order some parts. You're on the West Coast and your supplier is on the East Coast. Well, you don't really want to know what the UTC time is. What you want to know is, when is this company closing? Is it evening for them? When do they all go home? Can I finish my sales report, or do I need to call this guy up right away? The other example, of course, is if you want to call a friend up in another country. Maybe you're in the US and they're in India. Well, you really want to know, what time is it for him over there? Is he about ready to sit down for supper? I don't want to bother him, but I don't want to miss him before he goes to bed either. So we live on a round planet. That's just the way it works. It's going to bring some challenges along with it. We can't all go by one time zone because days affect our routine. We're humans. The sun governs the day and the cycles of our planet, and it fits in perfectly with the way people need to live. We sleep at night, wake up in the day. We generally take lunch or take a break around midday. It works good. So I do agree, and I think a lot of other people would as well, that we need to get rid of daylight savings time, because that's just pointless. But if we were all to move to a single global time, like UTC, or Greenwich time, or something we all agreed on, we would still find ourselves with the same problem. Whenever we wanted to talk to somebody outside of our sun time, or solar time, we would still always be asking, "Hey, what time of day is it for you over there?" When we do business in another part of the world or travel there, instead of putting 2 clocks up on our cell phone to keep track of time, we would have to have an app that tells us it's midday, or after work hours, or late at night in that part of the world. And instead of looking up a time zone map, we would have to refer to a different kind of map, or a time of day map. It would tell us when most people are eating or sleeping or whatever in such and such a region. Or more efficiently, where's the sun at these different longitudes? So we would still have to reference the solar time at different longitudes, and we would still end up counting time forwards and backwards. So it really wouldn't solve anything, and we would just be addressing the wrong thing. In order to solve the problem as presented, people would actually need to stop relying on day and night. They would have to stop relying on their day and night patterns and their daily routines, which is not very helpful. People sleep at night for a reason. In some cases, there will be reason to have different schedules. In some regions, it may only be cool enough to be active in the nighttime, or at certain latitudes, night and day may be quite different from most other people. But yeah, there's a reason we do things at certain times of the day. Time of day has meaning, and that meaningfulness existed before we put numbers on our clock. The reason we keep time zones, and calendars is so we can communicate with each other accurately. It's like I said, the world is round. What are you going to do? Just like math and words are descriptions of real things, the hours on our clock also have real meaning. When we use time zones as part of our vocabulary, it's for the purpose of communication. Importantly, that includes record keeping. Record keeping, newspaper reports, crime reports, history books, even fiction, all use local time. If we were to just get rid of time zones, we wouldn't be able to understand past records. And future records would still need to be concerned with local time events, for which we would have to find new words to describe them. Instead of saying something like 2 a.m., prowler spotted in the neighborhood, a police report might need to say, a few hours after dark, when most people had been in bed for a few hours, or some time. And if we used UTC for a report, or record, or story, then when anybody read the time of day, they would have to ask themselves, where was this written? Or where did this happen? If they wanted to know the actual time of day that was written about. In all of this, we've been talking about timekeeping for humans. It's been attempted with limited success to keep nations and regions from being split up by time zones. If you look at a map, you can see how they route around islands and continents, and in other cases cut right through them. But for microchips, internet servers, and such, we can and do use a more arbitrary time standard. If you were to ask a Unix or Linux system for the time, you might get that the number of seconds elapsed since January 1970. An email server might place a UTC timestamp on a message it receives. But after it's sent along to you, your computer would display the time you received it in your local time zone. This may seem generally unsatisfactory from a more technical perspective, but if we enjoy the sunrise and don't mind living on a round planet, it's all good. Goodbye!